Imagine being 12 years old. You get off the school bus, walk up to your apartment, turn the key in the lock, and step into complete emptiness. No furniture, no belongings, no mother, no one. This isn't a nightmare. This is what happened to a child in Copperas Cove, Texas just last week. And what makes this case even more disturbing is that this wasn't the first time his mother had abandoned him. I'm covering this case because it exposes something we see far too often. Children falling through the cracks while the adults responsible for protecting them prioritize themselves. This is the story of Erica Renee Sanders, Kevin Dwayne Adams, and the 12-year-old boy they left behind. On October 21st, 2025, a 12-year-old boy returned home from school to his apartment on Primrose Drive in Copperas Cove, Texas. Copperas Cove is a small city just outside Fort Cavazos, formerly Fort Hood, with a population of about 35,000 people. It's the kind of community where neighbors know each other, where people look out for one another. But on this particular afternoon, no one was looking out for this child. When the boy opened the door to his apartment, he found it completely emptied out. Not just his mother is missing. Not just her boyfriend is gone. Everything was gone. Furniture, clothes, personal belongings. The entire apartment had been cleared out. Now, put yourself in this child's position for a moment. You're 12 years old. You've just had a normal day at school. Maybe you're thinking about homework or what's for dinner or a video game you want to play. And you come home to nothing. The confusion. The fear. The immediate realization that something is very, very wrong. The boy did what he had to do. He contacted authorities. And what he told police painted an even more disturbing picture. The boy told officers that his mother, Erica Renee Sanders, and her boyfriend, Kevin Dwayne Adams, had mentioned moving at some point. But here's the critical detail. They never told him when. They never told him it was happening that day. They never made arrangements for where he would go or who would care for him. They just left. Think about what that means. This child had already experienced being rejected by his own mother. He'd already been kicked out, forced to find somewhere else to stay. And yet somehow, he was still in her custody. Somehow, the system hadn't intervened. This is exactly the kind of a systemic failure we talk about on this channel. The warning signs were there. The pattern was established, and a child continued to suffer. When police finally tracked down Erica Sanders and Kevin Adams, they asked the obvious question, "Where is your son? What arrangements did you make for him?" And this is where the lie comes in. Sanders and Adams told police that an uncle was supposed to pick the boy up. They tried to make it sound like they had made arrangements, like this was all just a miscommunication, like they weren't actually abandoning their child. So police did their job. They contacted the uncle. The uncle told investigators he knew absolutely nothing about this supposed arrangement. No one had called him. No one had asked him to pick up the boy. No one had even mentioned that Sanders and Adams were moving. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a fabrication. Sanders and Adams made up this story to cover their tracks, to make themselves look less negligent than they actually were. But the evidence was clear. They had abandoned this 12-year-old child with no plan, no backup, no care for what would happen to him. They emptied an entire apartment, packed up their lives, and left him behind like he was just another piece of furniture they didn't want to take with them. On October 21st, 2025, both Erica Renee Sanders and Kevin Dwayne Adams were arrested and charged with abandoning or endangering a child. Under Texas law, specifically Texas Penal Code Section 22.041, a person commits this offense if they have custody, care, or control of a child younger than 15 years old, and they intentionally abandon the child in any place under circumstances that expose the child to an unreasonable risk of harm. This is a serious felony charge in Texas. Depending on the circumstances and whether the child suffered bodily injury, this offense can be charged as a state jail felony up to a second-degree felony, carrying potential sentences of 2 to 20 years in prison. The affidavit detailing these charges was made public, and that's how we know the details of this case. KWTX, the local CBS affiliate, broke the story based on that affidavit and police reports. Both Sanders and Adams are now in custody, facing the legal consequences of their actions. But here's what we need to talk about. The consequences for this child go far beyond what any court can address. His case is not an isolated incident. According to the Children's Bureau, part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, neglect is the most common form of child maltreatment in America, accounting for over 60% of all cases. And abandonment? It's one of the most psychologically damaging forms of neglect a child can experience. This 12-year-old boy will carry this trauma for the rest of his life. The feeling of coming home to emptiness, the realization that his own mother chose to leave him behind, the knowledge that he'd been kicked out before and it happened again. These are wounds that don't heal quickly, if they heal at all. But here's what we can do. We can demand accountability. We can shine a light on these cases. We can ask the hard questions about why neighbors knew this child had been kicked out before, but he was still in his mother's custody. We can demand that Child Protective Services do better. This boy deserves justice. He deserves to know that what happened to him was wrong, that it wasn't his fault, and that the adults who failed him will be held accountable. That's why we cover these cases here on Secrets in the Shadows, because every child deserves protection, every child deserves a voice, and every case of abuse and neglect deserves to be brought into the light. As of this recording, both Erica Renee Sanders and Kevin Dwayne Adams remain in custody. We'll continue to follow this case as it moves through the Texas court system, and we'll update you on any developments. If you or someone you know is experiencing child abuse or neglect, please reach out. The Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-4A-CHILD. That's 1-800-4A-CHILD, 1-800-42-24453. You can also text or call 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline if you're in immediate danger. To the boy at the center of this case, if you ever see this video, I want you to know something. What happened to you was not your fault. You deserve better. You deserved a mother who protected you, who chose you, who made you feel safe, and I hope you find the healing and support you need to move forward. If this case made you angry, if it made you want to demand better for vulnerable children, hit that subscribe button. We cover cases like this every week, cases that expose system failures, cases that demand accountability, cases that need to be told. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on this case. Should Sanders and Adams face the maximum sentence? What more could have been done to protect this child? Until next time, keep seeking the truth. Keep standing with survivors. This is Secrets in the Shadows, where we shine a light on the cases the world tried to forget, because the truth should never stay hidden.